Hi, guys. I'm Dana Al-Hanbali, and this is Something to Consider. Community. What does it really mean? We talk a lot about community these days, how to build it, grow it, monetize it, but few of us stop to actually ask what it is. Is it a shared interest, a digital following, or something deeper, a sense of being part of a conversation that matters? My guest today, Sultan bin Rashed Al Darmaki, is the founder of 1833, a platform and strategic advisory that's rethinking what community looks like in the creative industry. It's not about the algorithms or the audiences. It's about building spaces that spark connection, curiosity, and cultural exchange. It's about creating spaces that open doors rather than guard them, where local talent is celebrated, collaboration replaces competition, and culture becomes a bridge rather than a barrier. 1833 challenges the idea that community is a marketing buzzword. It's a space where taste, intellect, and identity meet, and where people are reminded that who we gather with stays with us as much as what we create. It treats community as an ecosystem, one built on creativity, trust, and shared purpose. Because if attention was yesterday's currency, community is quickly proving to be far more valuable. In this episode, we explore how Sultan sees the future of digital community, the economics of connection, and why the next generation of influence won't be measured in numbers, but in meaning. Sultan, thank you for being here, and welcome to the show.
Assalamu alaikum, Rashed. Thank you so much for having me.
Alaikum
Big
salam.
introduction.
An earned one, I would hope you agree.
Allah يسلمك. تسلمين.
So nice to have you here.
It's so lovely to be here.
I've been
Dana.
wanting to have this conversation with you for a while.
I know, and I've always said no.
I know, you're not a fan of being in the public eye.
I honestly, it feels that there's an element of self-glorification when it comes to doing press or doing podcasts. And I really like it's a lot of people get upset when I say no to them, but it's really not because of you. It's a me problem that like I like to be in the sort of like back scene instead of the forefront of things.
Were you always like this?
Funny enough, yes, actually. Even like when I worked in fashion, like I just didn't enjoy the press aspect of it. I felt it was too intrusive. Yeah, I don't know. I think like when it comes to social media, I'm in control of what I'm putting out there, and it's not about control, but like I just feels like it's self-glorification. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I think, look, PR and talking about yourself, there's a vulnerability that comes with it.
Yeah.
And while meeting you and getting to know you, I find you to be the least curated person when it comes to the way that you share. You're so natural, and what you see is what you get. I understand kind of wanting to keep a part of your life private.
Yeah.
I think there is a beauty to that, especially in a world that kind of invades your privacy in different ways.
$1,000,000%.
That being said, on your Instagram, you do mention in Intabdui come في London. So that's kind of where I want to start. Because that's quite a bold kind of introduction to Sultan as Sultan.
It was بدوي في London before I moved to Dubai. So when I lived in London for the longest time ever, it was بدوي في London. أعتقد يوم سافرت London, I've sort of thought that I will acclimate very quickly to a Western society. And what it did was the complete opposite.
Really?
You know, I became very Bedouin in every way possible. Like even everything I do, from like the dinners to Friday al-Bukhur, and my neighbors can smell the Bukhur and all. You know, these are rituals that I didn't think they were very important, but I became very fond of them whilst I was abroad, and I became a Bedouin in London.
That's beautiful. So what do we need to know about the context of your life to understand who you are today? I think it'll help set the stage for the conversation.
Big question. I don't know how to explain it in a 2-minute situation. I grew up in Al Ain to a mother who is a Mazroui and a dad who is a Darmaki, so it can't get more tribal. So there were certain parameters where we were allowed to kind of work around. في جيلي أنا مو الأجيال هذه الحين في جيلي أنا كان في أشياء معينة like this is what we need to do. My family took good care of me. I went to an incredible international school. So I was exposed to different nationalities and sort of gave me an idea of what other cultures look like. But growing up, it made me realize that everything it felt too small for me. Like I needed something bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I don't know if it was me being a sponge and wanting to take more and more on just to kind of understand it. And that's exactly what happened. I graduated from high school. I went to Sharjah. So that was the first time I moved out of Al Ain. And then from Sharjah, I moved to Abu Dhabi to work for Mubadala for a few years. And then after that, I moved to London. And it felt that, okay, it's a big city. يعني ما في excuse الحين take it in. بس London was funny because أنا يعني ما كنت أتوقع إن it will be close to 20 سنة. I thought it was going to be a 1 year, like max يعني حتى لأن يوم كنت صغير my family sent me to a boarding school in London for the summer for me to try it out وبعدين نكمل معاهم. طبعا أنا رجعت and I was like مستحيل أرجع لندن I hate that city and I don't want to be back there. But the universe works in mysterious ways. يعني هل السيتي اللي أنا قلت أنا I don't want to be in it يعني the universe was like, we're not done. We're going to go back there and you're going to be there for a while. And that's exactly what happened. بس بديت my career in Mubadala, which was absolutely incredible. And then I just pursued my passion, which was being involved in the fashion industry. And يعني what a joy. It was incredible. يعني في 16 سنة what we've built was incredible. يعني the stories, the people that we've worked with, it's wild. Ahmed Swede and I were talking about it a couple of days ago at lunch. And it's part of history right now, which I really enjoy and celebrate. And then we moved back to Dubai.
That's beautiful. You know, I understand, especially because you, as you've explained, you come from a tribal family. And when you did have these questions around aspirations and what is it that you were looking for, you moved to a place that maybe to an extent because of the access that they had at the time, gave you kind of the space to explore what you wanted to be. Going from Mubadala to fashion is quite a jump.
It was quite a jump. But so to take you a step back, when I was in high school, our career advisor / student advisor sort of saw a lot of my sketches and the work I have done. And in her head, she was like, you know, you gotta explore applying to fashion schools, which I did. But it was still not acceptable for me to go to a fashion school because that wasn't the norm, you know. And I know life changes very quickly here in the UAE, but 20 years ago, you are either a doctor, an engineer, or you study business. Anything outside of that sort of parameter, it's not something you should explore. But mashallah, when you look at like all the careers that are here, AI, fashion, art, it's incredible. Yeah. So at my time, that was not an option. Mubadala, the big switch from Mubadala to going to fashion was something that my soul needed. Yani, and I was like, okay, I did what I need to do for a couple of years within, you know, within the government sector, semi-private, actually semi-government sector. And I really wanted to explore it, but it also comes, it was it had to take a lot of courage to do that.
100%.
Because you're giving away an incredible salary. You're giving away a comfortable life. You're giving away financial stability in the future as well. And you just basically say, you know what, I'm just gonna jump and see where I go. And literally, that's what happened. يعني كانت تمر علينا أيام my friend and I were like 1 pound, 2 pound, 3 pound. We're going out tonight.
Oh, I love that. I mean, that's quite humbling, especially from coming from Al Khalij and going to an environment like that. It's incredible because, you know, you started off by saying once you got to London, there was a pull to the culture, the part of your personality that is very rooted in your culture. So I'm curious, what are some insights or learnings that came from your time in London that you feel like made sense for you and the community you eventually wanted to build?
Oh, I think with London, as a matter of fact, I know in London, the creative community as a whole came together collectively to support each other, and they all sort of knew each other, and they were one phone call away from each other, which was really, really beautiful. And it was a matter of like, there is a piece of cake and we can all share it, and can all win, because what you do is very different than what I do, what different than what Muhammad does, different than what Sami does. So it was a very sort of like, we're here to support each other. And I don't know how they arrived there. I've never investigated that, but experiencing it was really, really beautiful. When I moved back to Dubai, actually I came back for a visit before my big move to Dubai. I was so excited to see how the scene have changed. It became, the creative industry does exist. When I left, it did not exist. ما كان في creative industry. And
Had a
hence that.
voice.
الحين ولا
لا الحين it had a voice.
الحين it does have a voice 100%. بس يعني على أيامي أنا ما كان في, so I had to, I had to explore other cities. الحين لا, you look at it and you go like, wow, this is incredible. And what a shame if I'm not part of it. You know what I mean? And I think that made it easier for me to pack up my bags and move back to Dubai. But what I found very fascinating is that it's not a collaborative community and everyone works in silo. And I'm going to say it over and over again. And, whoever wants to get pissed off can get pissed off. I'm okay with that. But people still work in silo. And people are still sort of like in their own cliques. And it's just not healthy. If you want to build a healthy creative industry, we need to get to know each other and we need to come together. And yeah, of course, you'll have your group of friends that you hang out with, but we can also all sort of coexist and get to know each other better and support each other. And that's how 1833 happened. I think it was my second week back in Dubai, and I was sat with our Bahraini Sambusa friend Badur, and we were sat out. That time I lived at a hotel, and I was outdoors in the courtyard, and I was telling him, "Listen, I'm gonna start a members club." He was like, "You're wild. Stop it." And I was like, "I'm serious." I was like, "Hear me out. This is what I'm gonna do." وتسهلت الأمور بسرعة يعني. And I think the way I approach also building is very different than what I've very quickly came to realize about the way things are built here. Here, it needs to be quick, fast, big, glamorous, all of that. And I come from the school of slow and steady wins the race. ما في عيلة. You know what I mean? Let's break it down to multiple phases of what does that look like as we start growing, and how do you build this? Yeah, 2 years into it right now?
I actually want to take a minute and build on that, because that's actually incredible and interesting to look at it from that perspective. Two things I want to kind of delve into. I'm curious about your thoughts as to why there's such a scarcity mindset in the creative industry and we do continue to work as silos, because I do think it's a problem. And then two, when it comes to building the community, it's so interesting to look at it from the perspective of how you said slow and steady wins the race. You're building it in phases.
Yeah.
What I find unique about that is you're building it with the members. Us, I'm very proud to say I'm a member, but you're building it with us in mind. So we're almost part of that growth.
Oh, 100%.
And I want to speak to that. So let's go with the first one first. Why do you think there's such a scarcity mindset?
I don't, to be quite honest with you, I don't know, but it's unacceptable to be quite honest with you. And it's not healthy. I don't know why we arrived where we're at right now. Maybe, and I can't blame it all on the community. I'm sure there's a lot of external factors and a lot of internal factors that contributes to that. Maybe with, like, if I break it down to the fashion industry specifically, the fact that, there aren't enough retailers to basically be able to buy their products, or there isn't the proper infrastructure to help them build brands. I don't think I can fully say it's their fault. I think it's a combination of a lot of reasons that I'm still trying to figure out what it is. But what I figured out how we will do thing is we'll create a platform. واللي يبغى يجي حياه الله. And that's how we build. And that's where you sort of like let your ego behind and you walk in and you go like, we're here to help each other and we're here to support each other. And yeah.
So let's go back to this idea of how you're building it. We are very much part of the building. You're not rushing yourself.
No.
Why are you consciously doing that? Because to speak to the way things are built specifically in Dubai, I don't think it's representative of the entire Emirates, but in Dubai specifically, they do such a beautiful job at build and they will come. You are inviting as you are building, which is quite different.
Yeah, it is. I went. I think when I started thinking about 1833, I wanted to take it back to my parents' days. The simplicity of it. Babich maftuh, people will walk in, and you'll allow them in. حتى from everything that we do as activations, the on and off the record, the talks. This is a majlis setting. We haven't reinvented the wheel, but we gave it agency, we gave it a voice, and we allowed it to be what it really is, of a majlis where we can talk about everything and anything. The master classes, the kind of passing the knowledge. I want to take it back to my family days, of the simplicity of it in a city that is very fast paced, and it's very quickly becoming the next New York, the next London. And because I lived in London, I know how you can get lost in that city very quickly. And just kind of provide a space that, when sometimes you go to someone's home and you go like, oh, I feel so good. That's what we wanted to create. And you walk in and you feel good. This is home, without pretenses, without, don't care who you are, don't care what you do, don't care if you're important or not. We're كلنا سواسية. يعني بمعنى وايد بسيط. بس يوم تبنين شيء, ما تقدرين تبنين وتقولين أنه it's my thing. You know what I mean? So like my approach to it, يعني before even writing it on paper, was it's a community built by a community. بمعنى we're building this together rather than just me building it. And I wanted to also always honor that, I will always, like anything related to 1833, work related, we always tap into our community. So agencies, designers, all of that are actually part of our community. They're not external. And I felt that it will be what an honor for us to to have our community support us with the work and build this with us, rather than us going externally and say, hey, listen, we're lacking an agency that can support us with our production. Would you come and support us with it? When you start building something with your friends, and very quickly, I don't know if you realize that, very quickly in 1833, you make friends.
100%.
Very quickly, because honestly, I think everyone walks in without an ego, and it offers a space where we just want human connection. نحن بشر, نبا, when I feel like I have a bad day, I want to call a friend and say, I want to go to the movies. Do you want to come with me? And I think that 1833 offers that space. But when you get them involved in building something, they have a part of it there. It's not something that I was like, oh, Sultan bin Rashed is building this and, حياكم الله. No, this is our space. يعني حتى الحين مثلا نحن we're in phase 3 of 1833, where we're talking about building the house. We're launching the design committee next week, and we're meeting with all the designers from 1833, interior, architects, product designers, not to say this is the final plan, but let's get the ball rolling. And this is what our aspiration is from a space, and this is what it needs to serve. And this is, so how does it look like in your world? And if we do this collectively, how can we do it collectively? How amazing would it be to say this house was built by not one designer, but to say it was built by Nadadibs, Mishari, Umar, Qaith, all these incredible names who are already members of 1833, and not to say, and this is where we come in and say we're breaking that that silo of like, it's for me and it's not for you. It's a collective. It's a collective of some of the best names, and how can we basically do it together? And I hope that supports in changing the narrative of how we can work in the future.
That's really well said and well articulated. And it's interesting because it does highlight what makes 1833 so much more inclusive, but also curated. Because I think, especially when it comes to community, and when I think about the volume of communities that are popping up, because العرف عند الناس when it comes to what is community, it feels like a club. You meet a specific requirement, you usually pay some sort of a fee, you get in, and there's an exclusivity to that where, once you're associated with this, it means something. And what's interesting is that although 1833 does have qualifications or things that they look for, not necessarily qualifications, but things that they look for and they're very centered around values and mindset, to be fair, more than external achievement. It doesn't feel as
exclusive.
Cold. It doesn't feel cold. And I think it goes back to what you were saying. You built it I don't think you built it to mirror what's happening in New York or London. I think you built it to mirror what being part of Arab culture is. And I think that's beautiful.
I think 1833 أول شيء نحن بنيت 1833 first and foremost to celebrate Arabs بمعنى الكلمة لأن I was very much done with the narrative of like the lack of talent from the Middle East, and I was like, you are so wrong. But I also understand internationally why some people may view that, because as a system, when it comes to putting talent at the forefront, we still haven't established a system where, you actually celebrate the good and set aside the bad and the mediocre. Because للأسف, when you celebrate both, it trumps the good. And people don't see the good, they see يشوفون كل شيء. So when we built 1833, it was about celebrating it. I think one of the biggest things that we really struggled with in terms of do we call it exclusive or not? And I generally, there are two terms that I generally don't like. I don't like the term exclusive, and I don't like the term community. I don't know why, but I think maybe because they both have been used and overused. Like they've been abused in every way possible. And our intent and intention is very authentic and very straightforward. It's not us trying to mimic a Western ideology of what a community is. I was mimicking my father's majlis, as simple as that, and my mother's majlis. That's what 1833. Now, when it comes to the people who are part of 1833, yes, we have an application process, and it's not the reason for that is not to we position ourselves as important, but it allows us to sort of filter out who could be part of this community and who can contribute to it, and or not. And the application process, when we receive it, it's quite telling. Because we have 3 questions or 2 questions now actually to tell us a little bit more about you, and from the answers you can very quickly tell that this is not gonna work. And 1833 انبنت على مبدأ the give and take. ناخذ ونعطي مع بعض، بس يوم تحسين مرات أن the purpose is to take, then it becomes problematic. But so far, I think we have an incredible group of humans in 1833.
We do. And I think, to your point, the term contribute, I would underline that a million times, because you're also very conscious about not just what value 1833 will potentially add to you, but what value you can add to it from that. I'm sorry, I can't think of another word, but community perspective. You know what I mean. That being said, though, one thing I do want to ask is, when it comes to community being a currency, and what I mean by that is that it's not just the value of what happens inside, it's about what the value is externally. I'm sure, inshallah, and I'm sure you already face this now, you're going to start getting to a point where there are going to be brands, businesses, entities wanting to get involved with organizations like 1833. I mean, you guys also do strategic advisory, which says a lot about, what the purpose of 1833 is. So my question is, how do you see 1833 giving back to these evolving ecosystems?
Giving back in what sense?
So what I'm trying to say is, what do you think the real currency is? Is it the ideas? Is it the community that's built on trust? So it's almost like a vetted community that a brand can come to. Is it the influence? Like, can we as a community eventually influence some of the policies or the regulations? For as an example, for me, IP is something super key for me. Would the chambers of commerce come to us one day and talk to us about, guys, what do you think about the IP regulations in the creative industry?
أحس مع 1833 يعني في الفترة القصيرة اللي اشتغلنا فيها we managed to slowly shift the needle. You know what I mean? وحب الصغيرة. You know what I mean? And I do think that as we start growing, our voice will be valued more. It's too soon for us to say that our voice has an influence. I hope we do to a certain extent, but I do know that as we start growing more and more and more and more, we will have an influence. يعني بعطيك أبسط مثال يعني ك 1833 نحن probably the one of the very few platforms where we have ministers come and speak at our platform and we have candid conversation, and I think they respect who we are as a community and what intentions we have. As opposed to maybe other communities. فدايما يعني when we send an invitation for them, they come and speak to us, and we always have these candid conversations from a policy perspective, because نيتنا نحن is how to better the community. You know, how to kind of improve some of the policies that we have, how to improve the creative scene as a whole. شو المطلوب وشو اللي مش مطلوب, what we need and we don't need out of it. I'm excited about the growth of 1833, but to answer your question, I don't know. I want to keep myself grounded and humble about it for now, and I want to see how it grows and what influence it will have in the future. Does that answer your question?
It does answer my question. And it speaks to your own humility, which is very nice. Sultan, you alluded to something that's very, very important for me. I'm a very, very proud Arab. Whether I'm from the country or not, for me, any Arab nation, I consider it something I'm very proud to be part of. And I feel like one huge thing that 1833 has provided that we have such a lack of, I think, in the region, is a community that truly celebrates everything about being Arab. And I feel like I saw that live most when I saw we were celebrating a very specific musical group, and I saw people from an Asian community with no connection to being Arab or speaking the language or understanding the nuances of culture, but being part of the celebration of that. And for me, I don't remember the last time I saw that power.
It's brilliant. Wasn't it beautiful?
It's so powerful. And I'm so
powerful.
proud of it, because I feel like it isn't a watered down version of what it means to be Arab. It's a truly authentic version. And what I love about that is it's us showing up in our most authentic selves as Arabs and still being inclusive and people accepting that. And I think there's something key about that, because I don't know if you agree with me, but I feel like, especially regionally, sometimes we get stuck in progress, meaning a gentrified version of what being an Arab means, what we're supposed to look like, how we're supposed to talk, how we're supposed to dress, which I find very infuriating. What are your thoughts on that?
شوفي, أحس as an identity نحن we will evolve with time, but the beauty of us is being able to hold on to what makes us different from anyone else, our values, who we are, our appreciating our culture, appreciating the art that we have across all disciplines, whether it's music, visual art, whatever it is. بس إن نقدر هالأمور كلهن because it leaves us. So I think the event that you're talking about, I know exactly which one you're talking about. It was necessary and it needed to happen, because مرينا في مراحل فيها أن there are things that became acceptable and not acceptable from من وجهة نظر الأشخاص. And what does that a music setting like that look like? But it's part of our culture, and it's important for us to celebrate it, and it's important for us to share it. يعني من الأشياء اللي نتكلم فيها دائما مع الأشخاص اللي هم مش عرب but we don't see these settings, and we're like, you know what, that's fair, we're gonna do them. We're working on something Q1 2026, which is a performance piece by this incredible human. I don't want to talk much about it, but it will show everyone that we have performance art here, and it can be traditional, and it can be beautiful and celebratory, and we can proudly say that we are. نحن مرينا في فترة صار في shift. يعني أنا أحس في جيلي، أنا ما أعرف الأجيال الموجودة الحين واللي بعدي، أن صرنا أجانب أكثر مما نحن أجانب.
100%.
You know what I mean? There was that shift from, we are Arabs, and I personally went through I'm talking about myself right now. There was that a little bit of a confusion. I watch American shows, American TV. I'm westernized. But I'm Arab, and I'm from Al Ain, and I'm from tribal, but I'm Western. So there was a little bit of an identity crisis. And I feel like a lot of people in my generation, the ones that I talk to, feel exactly the same thing, that there was a shift from us being celebratory towards our culture to being that sort of that group of people that aren't sure who we are. But what happened is, as we got older, we realized that we're so proud of who we are, and we want to just talk about it more and celebrate it more and emphasize it and say why it's different and why it's incredible. And I love that shift, but I also see that shift with the younger generation, where they're very proud Arabs, and that brings me so much joy.
Yeah, I do think that collectively, when I look at the global South in general, we're all kind of in the middle of a decolonization mindset.
100%. Yeah.
And embracing what works for us. And again, it's not a zero-sum game. This isn't me saying what works for us is right and what works for everyone else is wrong. But it is saying that there's a reason why it works like this for us.
Yeah.
Because we have something unique that is different, that you're more than welcome to be part of.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we have to change it to, what's the term? To be digestible to someone else.
Yeah, 100%. I think that we're not looking at it of like what's right or wrong, but we're looking at it of, we'll take what works for us, and we will what doesn't work for us, we will leave it. So yeah, no, I agree with you.
In your view, how does the creative economy in our region differ from the global one? And what kind of infrastructure do you think we still need in order to thrive?
That's a good question. ما نقدر نجمعهن كلهن. We can't group them all under one, because when you look at the landscape of the creative industry, there are certain disciplines that are in their mature cycle that they're doing well. So, for example, the art scene specifically has been had a presence in the region for, at least in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, for the past 15-20 years through Art Abu Dhabi and Art Dubai, and the incredible work that the Sheikh Mariam is doing with 421, and the foundations اللي قاعدة تفتح مع ناس تانيين. So when it comes to the art specifically, بدأت تكبر. يعني خلاص وصلت مرحلة فيها maturity, and it's moving to the next stages. But we have other disciplines within the creative industry that still needs love. And the only reason I feel that the other discipline is still lacking is because when we came to define what the creative industry is, it was defined as art and fashion. And we neglected all the other disciplines that actually complete it as an ecosystem. That said, we're aware of it right now. And I feel that there's so much effort that is going into kind of having everything catch up with the art scene. And it's beautiful to also see that, we have شباب وبنات who are already studying within different disciplines, اللي filmmaker, the producer, a writer, the musician, it's there, it's growing, and we will get there. بس الهم عليكم وعلينا to build it, you know what I mean? Inshallah.
You know, you touched on something super important, and it's this idea of value for the creative economy, and looking at it as an economy that can generate a lot of money.
$1,000,000.
And I feel like a lot of the time it's almost something that is dismissed because creatives, it's the creative industry. So either they're underpaid, because there isn't necessarily an institution يلي تحتضنهم that can support them in some way, shape, or form to kind of regulate how they get paid. So it's really difficult as a creative to kind of survive as a creative on your own. So what tends to happen is they end up working for someone else.
Yeah. I don't necessarily agree with that notion, because أحس أن نحن, the work that we're doing right now, we're paving the way. يعني بتجي على ظهرنا نحن, which is okay, بس بتجي على ظهرنا نحن because what's happening, we're paving the way for these industries to exist, and defining them and saying what it looks like and what doesn't look like. I think in the context of مثلا لو نتكلم, ما أقدر أتكلم عن دول الخليج الثانية, بس عن الإمارات, إحنا عمرنا 54 سنة بعدنا, يعني we're still a very young nation, بس as a young nation في وايد أشياء سويناها, it was like لازم نسويها بسرعة to catch up with the world. So maybe some industries, there was a more focus on certain industries, or there are certain industries that were probably placed in the back burner until the time is right. And I feel right now is the time where the conversation, there are bigger conversation about the creative industry and what does that look like publicly and within government, of like how does that shape up and how do we build that. And I think what you're talking about is valid, and it's true. The lack of the definitions of payments, what is it exactly? What do we have to do? Do I have to do 2 jobs or not? وهالأمور كلهن. But fortunately, we're the ones who's going to be paving the way and defining all of that. And what an incredible honor.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I'm happy with that. ما عندي مشكلة أبداً. So let's do it.
I think بالعكس, you make a very valid point, and I'm also proud to be part of that. And I think because we understand the challenges, it only makes sense that we're part of creating it. But one thing I will speak to is that there are so many incredible creatives in the region, as you mentioned early on, but I feel like there is a lack of opportunities for these creatives that has to do with the experience some of them may have. It's a very difficult industry to break into. So in order for a creative to thrive, it's almost like a chicken and an egg philosophy. Yeah. And the opportunities aren't there, or the opportunities are there, but they also keep going to more international creative communities, ones that have the backing, ones that have the experience, ones that have. So it is difficult, and I feel like it is a systemic problem.
It's part of the change.
Yeah.
It's part of the change, and that's why I was saying that it will be for us to kind of to get to that space where we change that narrative. على ظهرك على ظهري. So as simple as that.
I love how خلاص يعني we've taken it on. You often talk about celebrating each other together.
Yeah.
What does real collaboration look like to you? And where does ego have a tendency to get in the way?
شوفي, one of our manifesto is no ego. And I don't know if anyone read our manifesto.
I think we all did.
Yeah, so like ما في ego whatsoever. And I think that, when a new member joins, we always say there's 2 months for us to get to know each other. Either we get along or we don't. Because on paper, you might look incredible, but in that space, you may be pompous, not kind. Our values are not aligned, and it's okay for us to say, okay, this relationship did not work.
Have you had to do that?
Yes, we did.
And what does a conversation like that sound like? Like, is it about accountability, or is it about opportunity for change?
No, it's like it's a space. It's very clear within our policy. And we stated in the email, the acceptance email, there's this 2 months. هالأمور كلهن. So we always say no hard feelings, and there's never been a hard feeling, and we both don't need to explain it more. You know what I mean? And it didn't work. Thank you so much, and we're sort of like moving on, only because I think as we're like يعني انت يمكن كنتي من الأوائل who joined 1833.
Yeah.
والحين نحن مثلا closer, like a year into it, we're close to the 300, and we're still growing, and we're going to hit the 500, we're going to hit the 1,000, we're going to hit the 3,000. And as we grow, I think that one thing that makes 1833 special is that it's kind. You know, it's really, really kind. أعتقد الأسبوع اللي فات ولا اللي قبله, I had a moment and I was looking at the WhatsApp group, and it made me so proud, because إذا واحد منكم sends a message on the WhatsApp group, I need 1, 2, 3. You've experienced that. People flood in with like suggestions on how they can help. وهالأمور كلهن. And to me, that is authentic collaboration rather than a forced collaboration. So that's what collaboration in my books look like. It's not forced. It's authentic. It's beautiful. And it is على مبدأ نعين ونعاون. You know, we really do, because مرات أنت بتكوني بادية شيء جديد, بس ما عندك السيولة. You know what I mean? But I'm there to support you. But I know one day you'll return the favor without like that any نوع من ال expectations. And I think we managed to slowly but surely build that culture within 1833, which is really beautiful. يعني أنا شهادتي مجروحة. أنت تعرفين أكثر عني يعني.
لا وأشهد. يعني I agree with it. I've seen it. I've felt it. And it takes a village mindset.
Yeah.
Which is quite beautiful. And again, goes back to culture. You know, so many of the principles that you've talked about today around how this community was built is something that may be easy to kind of put down on paper and share with people. But the execution, I don't think it's always executed that way. And we've seen that with, again, brands that try to develop quote unquote communities, and it just isn't working. And from my own experience, I know that the minute you enter an 1833 space, the energy is different. And I guess my question is, why? What is that magic sauce? Why is kindness at the root of it? Sultan, there's something different. شوف, it's either you or يعني ما أدري.
تعرفين شو أحس you've been to my place,
yes.
You know, when we had some of the talks and the dinners and stuff like that. I always call my place a beautiful chaos. You know, it's not curated, but people may look at it as a curated space. But it really, I whenever I see it, I was like, you beautiful chaos. I love you. You know, every single night I'm sat there. أحس with 1833, the way we curated everything, ورب الكعبة, we did not take ourselves seriously whatsoever. You know what I mean? We really didn't. We said, like, you know, we wanted to approach it from an authentic place. But okay, we throw an event and it didn't go through the way we wanted to do. We sit and laugh about it. You know what I mean? We جد يعني نقعد نضحك عليها, and we're like, okay, you know, it didn't go as well. And we have, I think it became that sort of thought and mentality became contagious to our members, that they became so forgiving. يعني we had a dinner that was a flop. But قعدنا يعني أتذكر في الطريق كنا were like conference, and we were all laughing so hard of how bad that dinner was. But I think the minute you take things a little bit too seriously, الدنيا حلوة تراها يعني, والدنيا تساهل, this is my favorite word, الدنيا تساهل, you know, and just let it be. And I feel like people are not coming, we're taking them out of the context of the glitz and glam to a space that is forgiving and kind, and the conversations are kind, and the conversations are you know, real and raw and authentic ومش مصطنع. You know, they're not like fabricated, they're just real. But also a space where, you know, يعني أنا مثلا in 1833 I made a lot of friends. يعني صدق صاروا هنا like some of my very good friends. But a space where in a very fast-paced city there is someone who would be your match there, to be your friend or to be kind to you, or to you can build like some level of relationship with. Yeah, ما ناخذ عمرنا seriously.
I think that's beautiful, and that's actually quite rare. I don't think I've ever heard someone describe, anything they've created as that. And I think that's, honestly, you nailed it. That's
But
actually beautiful.
we have to have fun in the process. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? يعني مرات أشوف see some interviews and people talk about like, and it's very systematic. And this is what I go, why? I mean, have fun. It's like it's part of the process. And if the people care, they won't. إذا صارت a flop or anything, no one cares. Yeah.
But that's also another thing. I think because you've created a space that is super forgiving, and you don't take yourselves too seriously, and you don't hold yourself to this impossible standard, it invited people that kind of allowed them to take off that mask or that shield if they had one externally, and just let go.
مليون بالمية. And I think that's why we always tell people, join the escapes. You know what I mean? Because through like the dinners, يعني بعد ساعة people were like, okay, masks need to come off, because you kind of realize that how everyone is down to earth. With escapes with 1833, people لما تسافرين معاهم 3 أيام ولا أسبوع, ما في مجال يعني أنا to keep a mask more than like half an hour, and you go like, this is going to be exhausting. So all masks come off. And it's so nice to see that, these group of people actually become really good friends post the trip. Like, and to us, like, oh, okay, we've done our job.
Yeah.
And it's really nice. Yeah.
There are people that I never even knew about. They weren't even on my radar. That have become my friends because of 1833. And I'm so grateful for that.
I'm happy to hear that.
One thing that you do that's quite special, I just do want to mention it because it's quite cool. I'm someone who's very, I'm extroverted when it comes to my work, but I'm quite introverted when it comes to social settings.
Yeah.
And you did something at the dinners where he doesn't allow us to sit next to people we know. And as much as that gives me so much anxiety, it actually turned out to be one of the best strategies to push me out of my comfort zone and get to know people.
يعني شوفي أول ما بدينا 1833 كنت أمسك إيدين الناس and I'll be like, Dana, have you met this? Dana, have you met? I used to do that. But we're getting bigger. Like it's the community is getting bigger. فصار إنه وايد صعب. But في شيئين صارن وايد حلوين في هالشيء. إنزين. الشيء الأول إنه it was very nice to see, like, to sit and observe the OGs of 1833. They're doing what I used to do. Yo, hi, have you met 1, 2, 3? You sit in the back and I'm like, this is incredible. This is really brilliant. And you go like, I really love this because it wasn't dictated. There wasn't a mandate that was set for anyone to do it, but it felt that the OGs felt like whenever they see someone new, they'd be like, hey, hi, let me introduce you to 1, 2, 3. And it was really beautiful. The second thing, we felt that إذا نحن قاعدين نبني شيء نقول no clicks وهالأمور كلهن, then you will have to, like, every dinner you'll have to sit with someone new just to kind of get to know their story.
What are you doing from an advisory perspective? What is that?
ما ناخذ وايد. To be quite honest with you, we don't take a lot of advisory jobs because 1833 keeps me busy, like really, really, really busy. يعني يوم يقولون مرات ناس يقولوا لي, is this your full-time job? I was like, yeah, I work till 1 o'clock in the morning. It is a full-time job. يعني من الساعة 7 الصبح للساعة 1. It is a full-time job. Especially that يعني الناس الحين just to take a step back to explain a little bit about 1833. ولما الناس يشوفون 1833, they think it's only digital and it's just events. But because of what we spoke about earlier, and slow and steady wins the race, that's our approach with it. We didn't want to all of a sudden have a third space. بدينا phase 1, ما كان annual membership. It was pay by event, but it was the process of building the community. Phase 2, which started September last year, was no, now we're moving towards an annual membership, but it's a monthly payment. So I don't want you to pay it on like upfront. A lot of members actually prefer doing that. I prefer to be paid on monthly basis, and it's much forgiving to the wallet. And it was حين نحن دخلنا الانnual membership, and then phase 2 دخلنا في the app, the launch of the 1833 app, which is happening in the next couple of days. Now we're moving towards the third space, of like, okay, what does that space look like? What would it offer?
As in a physical space.
As in a physical space, and we've always said that 1833 is not just a Dubai brand. Like, we will start in Dubai because هذه بلادنا. وعايشين هنا, and we'll build the brand first in Dubai and then start rolling it out across the MENA region. يعني from Riyadh to Jeddah to Doha to Bahrain to Masr to Morocco. الله يقدرنا بإذن الله we arrived there يعني. بس أن that has always been the plan with it. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, personal question. What scares you? What scares you about what it is that you're building today? Does anything make you nervous?
What scares me about what I'm building? No, nothing scares me about what I'm building. And the reason I say this is because of two things. أول شيء, the way I approach building things. عندي مبدأ عطل الخباز خبزة ضروري. So the tech people are the tech people, the finance people are the finance, the CFO is the CFO, the people with the right expertise are coming along to build it. I'm just the person with the vision. And those are the incredible humans that believe in that vision and support me in building that vision. So that doesn't scare me because I feel our approach to building that business is very steady. The second thing, the community that we have. And we've done that a lot, and you've seen us do that a lot, where we would tap into our community and we'll say, hey, listen, we need help X, Y, and Z. ويعني بدل الواحد 10 يجون to basically help us with building it. ما في شيء يعني لا في business ولا في لا في business ولا في الحياة يخوفني. The only thing يخوفني قلبي رهيف. So أحاول ما I try not to fall in love. عشان قلبي وايد رهيف. بس generally ما في شيء في هالدنيا يخوفني. Like ما في أي شيء that be like, oh, that freaks me out. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. You've had a long, diverse career. You've made a couple of pivots. You've lived in different places. What do you feel like is the best investment you've made in your life?
بكل أمانة, surrendering.
Really?
Yeah. Just let it be. Just let it be.
Did it take you time to get there?
Yeah, it took me time to get there. يعني يوم انتقلت لندن صرت شوية a bit of a rebel في كل الأمور. You know, and it was a very self-discovery phase of me trying to figure out who I am and what I am. It was wild, and I think that it allowed me to arrive at a space where when you surrender, you allow it to be and it gets offered to you. من دون ما أنت you chase or anything like that. بإذن الله, inshallah, everything will happen. And they're so powerful, like inshallah it will happen بإذن الله. والتيسير من الله. يعني هاي كلمة تيسير من الله, I love her. Like it's one of my favorite things. So ما أشغل بالي في أمور وايد. يعني أنا وأنتي we were talking about the personal subject matter and earlier, and I was like, you know, it's تيسير من الله.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. That's beautiful. Sultan, at this part of the conversation, I usually ask my guests a question. I ask them. We kind of switch roles here.
Yeah.
And this is your opportunity to either ask me a question or give me something to consider.
لا, give you something to consider شوية صعبة. That's so out of like my personality يعني. Who's Dana? أنا عرفتش من فترة, بس who's Dana? What does Dana want?
That's a good question. I think I've become more comfortable with the fact that there's no one definition, because I used to struggle with not having one definition. It made me feel really isolated in this big, beautiful world that we live in.
Yeah.
But I think who I am is very much rooted in what I hope I represent, and it's a reflection of my values. I love being an Arab. I love being a Muslim. I love being someone that loves community and loves people. I love my commitment to wanting to do good. I love my commitment to wanting to see impact and be part of it. I love my commitment to speaking out for things that require a voice. I'm proud that I care about justice, and I'm proud that I care about the region and the world. Yeah. So I feel like me is rooted in all those things. But I think as the phases go on in my life, what that looks like evolves and changes.
It does, but in a beautiful way.
I hope so.
Inshallah.
Sultan, thank you so much. It was such a privilege having you
Yeah,
here.
Hadley, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm so glad I have you in my life.
وأنا حتى.
You're so wonderful. Beautiful. You're like all love.
قلبي أنت الله يسلمك.
And to everyone listening, thank you again, as always, for the privilege of your time. And I hope that you found something to consider.